While me and many other Bulls fans are pretty optimistic based off what we saw from the new-look Chicago Bulls offense, there were concerns about how the Chicago Bulls played. On today's episode, we're going to talk about some of those concerns coming out of the first preseason game, even though we don't want to overblow them. We're going to get into all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host here, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the content for today. And I wanted to offer a other side of the coin type scenario, right? So while, in watching the Bulls game, because, those that actually did watch the Chicago Bulls game, there are a lot of positives to take away about what the Bulls are trying to do different on the offensive side of the ball, how they went about that offense. There still were undoubtedly some reasons for concern with the Chicago Bulls and the way that they played or not got some things done. Now, I want to throw it out here that everything is with the caveat that it is one preseason game, just like I laid it out with the positives, right? You don't want to take too much from the positives or negatives based off one preseason game, but primarily I'm going to talk about the things that were done out there while the main core players were out there, meaning the players that are going to absolutely be in the rotation for the Chicago Bulls. And one of those things is that while the Chicago Bulls absolutely took more threes and generated more shots and moved the ball around a little bit better, the results weren't that much different. Now, here's the thing. Again, I'm saying that this is something that we really want to look at in the scope of what it was, right? And I do think, trying to fill it out, things like that, I definitely think that there are going to be some nights where the Bulls are absolutely on fire. When you look at, more than 4 threes taken for most of the players in the starting lineup, Kobe took more than 4 threes. Patrick Williams took more than 4 threes, right? Those are players that you absolutely want to see that. We didn't necessarily hit it at the percentage that I would have liked. We even got DeMar DeRozan only taking 6 shots, but one of those being a 3. So while the Bulls are clearly going to be taking more 3-pointers per game, that percentage didn't necessarily look the best, right? Overall in the game, shooting 37%, but a lot of that's coming from G League and, young players that you're not really going to see in the rotation once the season starts. But all that being said, I think it would be fair to say that the offense, while it definitely was moving faster, the shot frequency was looking better. The way that the shot percentage worked out, being 39% on the game for the Chicago Bulls, there was some sign for concern there. But I think that concern is going to be when it goes away quickly as this team adapts to how they're playing, adapts to getting their shots. And keep in mind, DeMar, Vooch, and Zach LaVine didn't all contribute a huge part of that Chicago Bulls offense, which we know that they're going to contribute a bigger portion going into the regular season. Another kind of negative coming away from that Chicago Bulls preseason game was Nikola Vucevic, right? And the fact that he only got up 3 shots, now in 17 minutes. Again, this is another one of those things that it's nitpicky, right? And I definitely think that this is going to be something we see that we're not going to even worry about from Nikola Vucevic. But I've even seen some Bulls fans say, oh, well, Vooch is settling for threes. He took one 3, right? And it's more so than just the 3, right? He didn't necessarily take advantage of opportunities down low, taking 3 total shots. That means 2 of them were not at the 3-point range. But again, it's 3 shots. Don't overreact to only 3 shots. But one thing he did well, rebounded the ball well. In 17 minutes, 4 rebounds, 1 assist. We'll take that aspect of it, right? But also, while we're on the topic of Nikola Vucevic, I will also say one of the things is that the Bulls really didn't go through Vooch as much as far as the playmaking aspect of it. We went through it some, and when we saw the ball was moving out there quite well, right? And I do think that is going to be something that, we definitely work in. Again, these are observations from a very small sample size, but considering how glowingly I've talked about it, I want to, be fair in talking about both sides of it. So once again, Nikola Vucevic, not getting up a lot of shots, but I think more so that was the thing that we knew that the core 3 players weren't necessarily out there to get the most shots up. It was to change the offense, facilitate a little bit more. With that being said as well, one of those things as far as Nikola Vucevic's playmaking, I just think when you have Kobe White out there, and even though Kobe White and his playmaking and decision-making out there looks much improved, you definitely can benefit from going through Vooch a little bit more, and I would like to see that in the Bulls' second preseason game and see how they work that in a little bit more as well on top of those type of things, right? Another thing with it is that, while the added ball movement is definitely something that we want, the movement without the ball as well is definitely something we want. The turnovers were a little bit concerning, especially in that second quarter more so than even the first. We need to get that in gear a little bit more, I think, for the Chicago Bulls. Now, that's gonna be something that comes once the keep in mind, this team is not used to moving the ball as much as that they have been. So that's going to be something that just comes with understanding, okay, yes, we want to move the ball around a little bit more, but once it gets to a certain position or spot, you just got to take that shot. And I think right now, guys are really trying to implement that new methodology and mindset of ball movement, player movement. So that's why you saw some of that overpassing, but that's definitely something that, at least for a little bit, to a smaller sample size, it's a little bit reasons for concern in that as well that I do think, right? So, those are kind of things that you want to look at with that Chicago Bulls team as far as on the negative side of things. But outside of that, I will say this, like Torrey Craig and Javon Carter, you can definitely see the impact that they're having as well. Want to see them out there with the starters a little bit more in that second preseason game as well. Not saying that either one of them necessarily need to pass up Kobe or Patrick Williams with starting, but I just want to see what they look like supporting that core three a little bit more, right? Because that's going to be the lineup where the core three is probably going to get more shots up than anything else. So you want to see that as well. Billy Donovan's already alluded to that nothing's set in stone right now about the starting lineup. So I do expect over the course of the preseason games that we're going to take a look at some different matchups and get some different starters in there eventually as well. And then DeMar DeRozan, right? DeMar, who, I will say there's positives and negatives with DeMar, right? Didn't over dribble the ball at all. The ball didn't stick. We didn't go into a lot of heavy isolation with either him or Zach LaVine. All good things with that. But it seemed like DeMar is still going to try to find his way. Again, this is an overreaction to one preseason game, so I want to be clear in that. But like DeMar finding his way, being more off the ball is what's going to separate, this team from being able to just be a really, really good offensive team to being able to go into that second gear when we need DeMar to know when to take over, right? And so, as DeMar, and like I said, I think a lot of these players right now are really trying to fill out the new system, right, and make sure that they get those things implemented first, and that's fine. That's what you want from a system. But, for DeMar to be his best, right, typically he has to have the ball in his hand. So right now, as far as that small sample size in 17 minutes, it wasn't bad, right? I don't want to say that it was like this thing where it's this huge sticking point that just looked terrible, but it didn't look as seamless as some of the other things that we've newly implemented in one preseason game as well for the Chicago Bulls. So we want to see that kind of increase. Watch that over the next few preseason games, how DeMar does work and operate with not having the ball in his hands as much as he's typically used to since he's joined the Chicago Bulls team. But again, if you guys watched him with the San Antonio Spurs, you know that he is more than capable, with facilitating a little bit more things like that. But that off-the-ball presence for DeMar, trying to find his spots without over-dribbling, that's going to be something to watch for the story as well with the Chicago Bulls. But overall, a lot of positives. The defense seems legit, even with that starting lineup as well. They got burned on pick and rolls a couple of times, so that's something to watch out for as well with that. The offensive rebounding, out of the starters, though, we only got one offensive rebound, and that was from Kobe White, even though the Bulls offensively rebounded the ball pretty well in the game with 15 offensive rebounds. We want to see that with that starting lineup a little bit better out there. But, as far as the players that are going to absolutely have roles on the team, Torrey Craig got an offensive rebound, right? Andre Drummond got 3 offensive rebounds, so that's all good as well. So we got some signs as far as the offensive rebounding being okay. Ayo Dosunmu chipped in with that as well. But we want to see that from the starting lineup as well. The better offensive rebounding from that starting 5 group is going to be key as well, with just getting more shot opportunities, taking advantage of the defense kind of being out of position, things like that. So that's another thing that you definitely want to watch for going forth with the rest of the preseason games that we have for the Chicago Bulls. But overall, like I said, way more positives than negatives. It's just I've been so positive with the Chicago Bulls in that first preseason game. I wanted to give it credence and fairness to talk about also the kind of the negatives that stood out in that first preseason game. We got 4 more preseason games on the docket. Next one up is Thursday against the Denver Nuggets. We got another one Sunday against the Denver Nuggets as well. One at home, one away. And then we still got the Toronto Raptors and the Minnesota Timberwolves to end the preseason run for the Chicago Bulls. But let me know. I know I've been very positive. Let me know some of your biggest concerns for the Chicago Bulls outside of that, from that first preseason game as we get ready for the next one on Thursday. Let me know all that down below. Make sure you're following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for our mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.